So good morning, sir. Today I'm gonna talk about certain topics and I'm gonna discuss them. First of all, let's talk about clouds. A cloud is a visible accumulation of minute droplets of water, ice crystals, or both suspended in the air. There are three different types of clouds, which is the high-level clouds, the mid-level clouds, and also the low-level clouds. The high-level clouds, which is 5 to 13 kilometers suspended in the air, which is namely cirrocumulus clouds, cirrus, and cirrostratus clouds. In the mid-level clouds, which is 2 to 7 kilometers, altocumulus clouds, altostratus clouds, and nimbostratus clouds. In the low-level clouds, which is 0 to 2 kilometers, you can find there the stratus, cumulus, and cumulonimbus, and stratocumulus clouds. First, let's talk about cirrus clouds. Cirrus is one of the most common types of clouds that can be seen at any time of the year. They're thin and wispy with a silky sheen appearance. Next is the cirrocumulus clouds. These clouds are among the most gorgeous out there. These usually form at about 5 kilometers above the surface with small, fluffy, white patterns that spread out for miles and miles over the sky. Cirrostratus clouds have a sheet-like appearance that can look like a curly blanket covering the sky. Next is the altocumulus clouds, formed at a lower altitude, so they largely made of water droplets, though they may return ice crystals when forming higher up. Altostratus clouds often spread over thousands of square miles that are strongly linked to light rain or snow. Nimbostratus clouds, these gloomy clouds are heavy rain bearers out there, forming a thick and dark layer of clouds that will completely block out the sun. Stratus clouds are composed of thin layers of clouds covering a large area of the sky. This simply mist or fog when it forms close to the ground. Next is the cumulus. It's most recognizable out of all types of clouds. These adorable piles of cotton form a large mass with well-defined rounded edge, which explain the name cumulus, which in Latin for heap. Lastly, the stratocumulus, which looks like a thick white blanket of stretched out cotton. They resemble cumulus clouds except they're far bigger. So that is the types of clouds and what are the clouds that are found in the sky. Precipitation is any form of water particles, whether liquid or solid, that falls from the atmosphere and reaches the ground. The different types of precipitation are rain, which is larger than drizzle from 0.02 inches to 0.5 millimeters or more. These are considered rain. While drizzle appears to float while following air currents, but unlike fog droplets, it falls to the ground. While ice pellets or sleet, precipitation of transparent or translucent pellets of ice. While hail, in the form of small balls or other pieces of ice falling separately or frozen together in irregular lumps. While small hail or snow pellets, precipitation of white opaque grains of ice that are round or sometimes conical. While snow is the precipitation of snow crystals that are mostly branched in the form of 6-pointed stars. Snow grains, basically, these are frozen drizzles. And lastly, ice crystals, generally occurring in very cold regions. They are falling crystals of ice in the form of needles, columns, or plate. The next topic that we are going to discuss is about the structure of depression. First, let's talk about an air mass is a large volume of air in the atmosphere that is mostly uniform in the temperature and moisture. Air masses from over large surfaces with uniform temperatures and humidity called source regions. Low wind speed let air remain stationary long enough to take on the features of the source region, such as heat or cold. They are grouped into 4 categories based on their source of region. The CP, or the continental polar, which is cold, dry air mass. The MP, or the maritime polar, which is cold, moist air mass. Next is the CT, which is the continental tropical, which is warm, dry air masses. Next is the MT, which is maritime tropical, which is warm, moist air mass. And lastly, the CA, which is extreme cold, moist air mass. Cold front pressures reaches minimum and then begins rising. Temperature drops quickly when wind increases in speed. Often gusty direction begins shifting. Warm front pressure reaches minimum and then remains steady. Temperature warms steadily. Wind direction Barry's speed may increase as front passes. Also, let's talk about depression, also referred as to low, which is air is rising. As it rises and cools, water vapor condenses to form clouds and perhaps precipitation. Next is the occluded fronts. These are cold fronts tend to move faster than warm fronts, and over time they can catch up with each other and create an occluded front. The initial depression is called primary and others are called secondary depressions. These secondary depressions sometimes grow very quickly into intense low with almost same characteristics as primary low. Primary, along with another or a series of secondary depressions, is termed as a family of depression. The structure of depression in the northern hemisphere, winds circulate around the depression in an anti-clockwise direction, and also in the southern hemisphere, wind circulates around of a depression in a clockwise direction. The life cycle of a depression. The origin and infancy. Initially, a warm air mass, such as one from the tropics, meets a cooler air mass, such as one from the polar regions. Maturity. The warm air rises up over the colder air, which is sinking. A warm sector develops between the warm and cold fronts. The occlusion, the cold front travels around 40 to 50 miles per hour compared to the warm front which travels at only 20 to 30 miles per hour. Lastly, the death. Eventually, the frontal system dies and all warm air has been pushed up from the surface and all that remains is cold air. Now, let's jump into anticyclones. Anticyclones is a weather system with high atmospheric pressure at its center around which air slowly circulates in a clockwise in the northern hemisphere or counterclockwise in the southern hemisphere direction. Anticyclones are associated with calm, fine weather. In the subtropics, anticyclones persist for long periods and are termed permanent. Those in the North Atlantic are called Bermuda and Azores anticyclones. Anticyclones may be either warm or cold, and warm anticyclones from all subtropical and some higher latitude anticyclones are typified by a mainly warm troposphere. A cold anticyclone is one in which the lower troposphere is occupied by cold air. Thus, it has relatively shallow circulations. The airflow is divergent at the surface but convergent in the upper part of the troposphere, which is subsequent downward movement of air in the troposphere, termed as subsidence. In weather conditions, in summertime months, a warm anticyclone over land results in higher air temperatures during the day. It creates haze, sea breeze, dew, radiation mist, or fog. During winter, the weather conditions initially are clear skies and low air temperatures during the day, while overnight, air temperatures often decrease below freezing point. It creates hoarfrost, radiation, fog, solar radiation, anticyclonic bloom, and lastly, rain. Anticyclonic weather conditions in summer and winter may persist for an extended period, and the changed conditions depend on the movement or general weakening of the anticyclone. So that would be all for my discussion today. I hope you have learned something from me, and God bless and stay safe. That will be all. Thank you.